Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's your boy DLloyd, and welcome back to another episode of the DLloyd NBA podcast. A few things before we get into today's episode. Of course, I am back from vacation, but I definitely want to thank you guys once again for all of the support you guys have been showing on these podcasts so far. I do want to let you know we are getting closer to it actually beginning to release itself on iTunes and all the other platforms. We are working through some things right now, but it is definitely coming. I am excited for it, and I will announce some more things soon about what's going to happen with the podcast. But the love you guys have been showing just on the channel and on the podcast has been amazing. If you guys aren't already following me, please start following me on Twitter as well at DLloydTV. I'm going to be more active there and post some extra stuff there as well on Twitter. So definitely make sure you guys go ahead and follow me there if you're not already following me on Twitter. But for today's episode, we're going to be talking about quite a few things. This one just coming in before we actually start the beginning. Carmelo Anthony, he is signing with the Houston Rockets. Kawhi Leonard, we're going to talk about him and his long-term plans possibly with the Toronto Raptors. Tobias Harris turning down a big-time contract. What does that mean for him and the Clippers? Dwayne Wade and his entire contract situation. And we're also going to end by talking about Isaiah Thomas reaching out to Danny Ainge. But like I said, the first thing is Carmelo Anthony. He will be signing a one-year minimum deal with the Houston Rockets. This is expected. We knew this was coming sooner rather than later. But Carmelo Anthony, he is officially a Houston Rocket. Like I said, 1 year, $2 million. He's still going to get the full $27.9 million from the Oklahoma City Thunder, that deal he had there. So things definitely worked out. If you don't remember, for Melo, he wanted to go to Houston before he was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder. He wanted to go to Houston last year. The Knicks, of course, didn't trade him, but he's going to end up in Houston anyways. Now, I am on the record saying, fit-wise on the courts, I'm not in love with Carmelo Anthony going to the Houston Rockets. What I mean by of course, you have another score. Things are going to be okay for you. But I don't think he makes the Houston Rockets better. I don't think he gets the Houston Rockets over the top. And when I'm saying over the top, that's comparing them, of course, to the Golden State Warriors. They were just one game away last season from making the NBA Finals and potentially being NBA champions. I just don't see it happening this season with Carmelo Anthony. I think the Houston Rockets, they took a little step back, just losing some key pieces here. They need a small forward, especially a small forward who can score. You get that in Carmelo Anthony. But what else is Carmelo Anthony contributing? He doesn't play defense. He's not going to hustle at all times. And you don't know the mindset that Carmelo Anthony is going to have. He could be motivated, and even if he is a motivated Melo, he's just a 20-point-a-game player. Now, you're probably looking at me like just 20 points. That is a huge impact. But the other things that he's not going to bring to the table and the amount that he's going to stop the ball, because we know Carmelo Anthony, he's not going to play into a system where he's going to be required to pass, set off ball screens. No, Carmelo Anthony, he wants the ball. He's going to get the ball in isolation situations. He's going to work from the mid-range. He's going to work from the post, and he's going to shoot some threes. But he's not a stand in the corner and be a spot-up shooter type of three-point shooter. When he did that in OKC, he really wasn't that efficient at all. So I don't see him now all of a sudden becoming a little bit more efficient standing in the corner for the Houston Rockets. You already have James Harden. He could pass the ball, but at the same time, he's going to want to go into his isolation situations. Him and Chris Paul took a while to really gel together. Carmelo Anthony and those two, I think, is going to take even longer before they gel together. And even once they do get to that point, when you're looking at them playoff basketball-wise, I still don't think, unless Carmelo Anthony takes a huge sacrifice to his ego and he changes his game, or he decides to come off the bench. But I don't see that happening. And if that does not happen, I don't see Carmelo Anthony truly impacting the Houston Rockets in a positive way that's putting them over the top. Are they going to be a great team to play with in NBA 2K? Absolutely. But in real-life basketball, I just don't see Carmelo Anthony at this point in his career with the style of play that they have and the coach in D'Antoni really improving the Houston Rockets. Mike D'Antoni already had to change up a lot of his coaching philosophies for James Harden and Chris Paul, who like to have the ball and kind of stagnate that ball movement. But now you add that third piece to it. I really don't see it helping too much. I think for the Houston Rockets, they just had to make another move, get another big-time player. I just don't think Carmelo Anthony takes them quite over the top where they become all of a sudden a contender against a team like the Golden State Warriors. Of course, they could fight for a 2 seed. They could even still fight for a 1 seed depending on how motivated the Warriors are. But when it comes playoff time and they have Boogie Cousins there all of a sudden now, I still don't think they're beating the Golden State Warriors. I don't even think they're getting to 7 games now in a series with Golden State. But anyway, he is signing a 1-year minimum deal. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of it. But one player who we're not quite sure what he is going to do, that is Kawhi Leonard. He got traded to the Toronto Raptors, of course, for DeMar DeRozan. The initial reports was Kawhi Leonard was not pleased with going to Toronto. Can't blame him. A lot of players would not be pleased by moving out the country completely and going to play for the Toronto Raptors. Traditionally, not a lot of players really want to go to Toronto. And that was my biggest gripe with Toronto trading DeMar DeRozan, is because DeMar DeRozan is that one-star player. Yes, he's not a superstar, but he's still that one-star player that actually wants to play in Toronto. Every other big-name player, they left. Chris Bosh, he left Toronto. Tracy McGrady, he left Toronto. Vince Carter, he left Toronto. And the only big-name guy there was really DeMar DeRozan. He wanted to be there. When he was an unrestricted free agent, he didn't even take a meeting with anybody, including the Lakers, his own hometown team. He didn't even take a meeting with L.A. when they wanted to bring in DeMar DeRozan. So for them, I think this was a gamble that wasn't going to pay off. I don't see a situation where Kawhi Leonard stays in Toronto. I think at the end of the year, regardless of what Toronto does, I truly believe at the end of the year, he will end up in L.A. But one person who is saying or thinking otherwise is somebody reportedly close to Kawhi Leonard. Of course, when these rumors start coming out, we don't know exactly who said it, but this is being reported by the San Diego Union Tribune, a person close to Kawhi Leonard is saying that they believe Kawhi will stay with the Toronto Raptors at the end of the season. Now, the only way I can see this happening is just for a PR move and just to make sure you keep your brand intact, because the brand is going to be damaged, of course, but I think the damage is already done. I don't think anybody in Toronto truly expects him to really stay past this season. A lot of people have their hopes up, of course, because of the whole Paul George situation. That whole Paul George situation to me is an anomaly. It doesn't happen all the time. If a player gives up $200 million to say, hey, I want to become an unrestricted free agent so I can sign with another team, more than likely, he is going to sign with the other team. So the fact that Paul George was able to just build this great relationship with Russell Westbrook, build a great relationship with the Oklahoma City Thunder organization is just an anomaly. It doesn't happen often. So the fact that the Toronto Raptors are trying this with Kawhi Leonard, once again, I don't think it's going to happen a second time where Kawhi Leonard now is going to all of a sudden embrace Toronto. I think he's going to embrace them enough just to keep his brand somewhat intact. But if you're trying to do anything else, and it looks like Kawhi, he's now looking into revenue streams outside of basketball, into his shoe deal. He wants a bigger shoe deal with Jordan. You're going to get that if you go to L.A. You're not going to get that in Toronto. Toronto is not selling shoes. The biggest thing they have in Toronto, of course, is Drake. But at the same time, he's not going to improve your off-the-court image. He's not going to improve your shoe sales. You're going to need to do that. I think LA is the best place to go if that's what you really want to do, is back at home for Kawhi. He's going to feel comfortable back there. And if he really wants to go to LA, and I'm not even saying just the Lakers, there's still a small possibility that he could go to the Clippers. But I think just being in LA is going to help his brand. I think that's what he wants to do. He wants to be back close to family. He wants to be back close to where he grew up. And of course, Staples Center only about an hour away from where he grew up. So I think ultimately, he ends up back in L.A. I don't believe these reports that he wants to stay in Toronto. I don't think he will stay in Toronto, but it sounds good to say now. Kind of keep some of the media off of you, kind of keep some of the fans off of you as well. But at the end of the day, I just don't see a situation truly where Kawhi Leonard decides to stay with the Toronto Raptors. I think he becomes an unrestricted free agent, and at that point, he's going to take some meetings with these L.A. teams, and I don't see him really leaving L.A. next offseason. But that is the story that is going on right now. Like I said, it is being reported by the San Diego Union Tribune. They are saying that Kawhi Leonard won't leave the Toronto Raptors. I just don't think it is true. Now, another player who is already in LA, but we're not quite sure if he will stay in LA, that player is Tobias Harris. Now, of course, he was acquired by the Los Angeles Clippers last season. And while playing for the Clippers, he played fairly well. He was averaging 18 points a game in Detroit last year. He went to the Clippers. He averaged 19 19.3 points a game. So close to 20 points per contest by Tobias Harris. Now, he turned down an $80 million contract extension. Now, you're asking, who turns down the $80 million contract extension? So, well, Tobias Harris does, and he has a pretty logical reason why. He is scheduled to become an unrestricted free agent in the summer of 2019. So, exactly what Klay Thompson is doing, Draymond Green is doing, they're just trying to leverage themselves to make as much money as possible. This summer, money was very, very tight. Teams were not trying to give a lot of money because they didn't have a lot of money to spend, thanks to the summer of 2016, of course, with the teams went absolutely crazy, signing everybody to major deals that they didn't, quite frankly, deserve. But now Tobias Harris, by declining the $80 million contract extension, if he becomes an unrestricted free agent in the summer of 2019, and he signs for a max. Now, that's the big thing. If he signs for the max, I don't think he will, but let's say he does sign for the max, it's worth $188 million. That same extension definitely is a way better option than signing for $80 million. So that is an option if he signs with the Clippers. If he decides to leave LA and go to another team, he is still signing for a max of $145.5 million. Still way over the $80 million that he was just offered. So the fact that the Clippers offer this, they know more than likely he's not going to accept it. But you have to at least try. You have to just throw out the offer, just like Golden State did with Klay Thompson, just like they did with Draymond Green. Both of them, of course, they're going to reject the offer because they know 2019, you're going to get paid. Same thing with Tobias Harris. The market is going to be a lot freer in terms of teams are going to have a lot more money to spend in the summer of 2019, and a lot more teams are preparing to spend max money summer of 2019. The Lakers are one of them, of course. We know Brooklyn, they are purely situating themselves to spend a lot of money in the summer of 2019. So there are a ton of teams that's going to have cap space. And with cap space means they have a lot of money to blow. Tobias Harris, he will be getting paid next offseason, so it makes sense for him to decline it. But I think ultimately I like him with the Clippers. I think he fits well into that scheme. I think he enjoys playing in LA. I also think him and Doc Rivers have a pretty good rapport. So I think ultimately, unless something drastic happens this season, he could very well stay with the Clippers. I don't think this means just because he turned it down, he's going to leave. But he's just trying to make sure he gets his money. And you can make way more money summer of 2019 than you can for signing that extension right now. So you are betting on yourself. Of course, the injury could happen. It could change everything. But if he stays healthy and, he's a career 15-point-a-game scorer, I don't see that going down. I think he now has opportunity, even with DeAndre Jordan out there, to now, for the first time in his career, become a 20-point scorer. I am excited about Tobias Harris. I think he's going to have a great season for the Clippers this upcoming year, and I think he's definitely going to get paid way more than that next season. Now, somebody, we don't know what they're going to do, and I made a video on my channel earlier in the week. Dwayne Wade, he's going to get a major contract offer from a Chinese Basketball Association team. So team in CBA could be offering Dwayne Wade a lot of money. Now, CBA traditionally, they don't pay a lot of their players a ton of money. The highest paid, one of the highest paid players now, of course, making $1.8 million. That's Jimmy Fredette. Dwayne Wade, yes, he deserves more. He'll probably get more money, but at the same time, I think his heart is set on staying in the NBA, and I'm not quite sure if he wants to even go overseas and play in China. Dwayne Wade is still a player who can still ball here in the NBA. Coming off your bench, he's going to still get you those 12 points a game. That's exactly what he averaged, of course, with the Miami Heat. He averaged about that 11, 12-point a game range as well, even with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think for Dwayne Wade, I think he's going to take his time. And what we're hearing is that he may not even sign until the season begins. Now, I don't think he'll wait that far, but I definitely do think he's a player that probably won't sign until that September range, right before training camp begins, maybe even a couple of days into training camp. You could see Dwayne Wade then deciding where he's going to sign. I think ultimately he ends back up with the Miami Heat. It'll probably be a minimum deal. This $5 million that he wants is just not there. I don't think Dwayne Wade's going to get it. I think it'll be another veteran minimum at $2.3 million for Dwayne Wade. If he could prove himself, if he could stay healthy, if he could still show that he's worth more, maybe summer 2019. If he decides to come back and play again, he can make a little bit more money. But this $5 million that he is on, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't really think that's a realistic target for Dwayne Wade. I think he's really going to make $2.3 million. Dirk, he just signed for a 1-year, $5 million deal. I just don't see it with the Miami Heat, and I don't see it with Dwayne Wade. Maybe if you look elsewhere and you go to another team, you may then be able to get that money. But Dwayne Wade, I think ultimately he will stay in the United States. I think he will stay with the Miami Heat. I just think it's going to be for a league minimum. And I still think Dwayne Wade has stuff left in the tank. I don't think he's one of those players that's just completely washed up and really has nothing else to give to an organization and to a team. He has unbelievable leadership characteristics that can help out a ton of young players, but he also is a viable option coming off your bench. He can still go off for 20-plus points in a given night if he gets hot, if he's going up against the right matchups, and he's just feeling it that day. Dwayne Wade can still give you 20-plus points, and a lot of bench players aren't even capable of doing that. So I think for Dwayne Wade, I think he doesn't mind coming off the bench anymore. He's not trying to be the guy. I think he definitely wants his money because he sacrificed so much bringing LeBron and Chris Bosh there. He definitely wants to make his money. He's just not going to make that $5 million, I don't believe, in the market today. It's an extremely tight market. Players aren't making what they expected to make, and I don't think Dwayne Wade is going to make what he expects to make, which is that $5 million. But rumor is right now that he may not sign until the season begins. I think at this point, that's probably the best move for Dwayne Wade. If you're not getting any offers right now, none of them are close to your ballpark, just wait it out. Maybe an injury occurs when now you have more leverage, or maybe an injury occurs when now you're more in demand because the team just wants to bring somebody in who can help them compete, and Dwayne Wade is definitely a player who can still help you compete. Now, speaking of another player that was kind of shafted when it came out here into free agency this year, we're talking about Isaiah Thomas. Now, IT, while in Boston, we believe that he could be potentially a max type of player. We literally made videos and we talked about, is Isaiah Thomas worth the max? So we're talking about $200+ million for Isaiah Thomas. We didn't know if he was because of size, defensive liabilities, but what he brought offensively to the Boston Celtics, we were actually truly debating whether or not he should make that money or not. But regardless, he was going to make well over $100 million regardless. Now, we've seen his stock drop remarkably in one season. He went to Cleveland. He was injured, of course. He came back. He played right before the trade deadline. Didn't play good. He kept running his mouth. He kept acting like it's him and LeBron James' team when we all knew that was LeBron's team. It wasn't his. But he kept talking as if it was still Boston. This was still his team. So you could tell wasn't really liked too much in that locker room there. He wore out his welcome with the Cavaliers organization. They shipped him out the trade deadline. He went to L.A. Now, in L.A., we've seen a productive Isaiah Thomas. He was liked in the locker room. He really didn't cause too many waves while being in L.A., and he had some pretty impressive performances. Of course, didn't play a whole lot in L.A., but the market just simply was not there. He ended up signing a minimum deal to go play in Denver, and you know in Denver, he's more than likely going to be the sixth man for the Denver Nuggets. So it's a huge drop in terms of stock in just one season. Probably one of the craziest drops we've seen in recent memories is how far somebody could go from being an MVP candidate to coming off the bench for a team that's fighting to just make the playoffs. So a pretty big stop. But what we're hearing right now is Isaiah Thomas, he reached out to Danny Ainge and the Boston Celtics right before he signed with the Boston Celtics. And he said it was a 15-minute conversation with him and Ainge. He said, if the opportunity is there, I would just like to let you know that I'd love to come back. So conversation didn't get too much in depth, but the fact that he picked up the phone and called the same guy who traded him after everything he did for that organization and for that team, it shows kind of where Isaiah Thomas was. And this was literally the night before he signed with the Denver Nuggets. So that night they talked. Danny Ainge said, we're going to see what happens with Marcus Smart before we bring you back, which also implies if they're bringing him back, he was going to be coming off the bench even in Boston, which I don't see him doing, but we did make a video about him being open to returning to Boston, and this is just proving that what we said and those rumors were in fact true. He was open to going back to Boston. Ultimately, he ended up with the Denver Nuggets. I think for whatever reason, things didn't work out with him in contract talks with Orlando. I think ultimately the Orlando Magic were the best option for Isaiah Thomas. I think he would have had his team. He would have had the opportunity and the freedom to go out and be that same scorer that you were in the past and show people that you're still Isaiah Thomas. But instead, now you got to show people that you're willing to accept a lesser role. You have to show people that you're willing to still come in, still be that guy, just with less opportunity. So you have to be efficient with those minutes. I think those minutes are clearly, they're going to be there for you in Denver. You're going to get minutes. You're going to get the opportunity to still shine and the opportunity to still show that you're that same Isaiah Thomas that deserves to get paid. It is a one-year deal, but it was interesting to see that he did reach out to Boston. Boston wasn't really, they were accepting of it, but they weren't really going after it. Marcus Smart was their guy that they wanted to keep over Isaiah Thomas. So it was interesting that that fact happened, but it's just crazy how quickly, stock could go. And this is why I'm always going to be on the side of players when it comes to you doing what's best for you, because at the end of the day, it's rough. You see what happened with DeMar DeRozan. You see what happened with Isaiah Thomas. It's a business from a lot of the owners and general managers' perspectives. And if you can't perform, they wouldn't let you go. They're going to trade you, going to do something to that type. Isaiah Thomas, even for the Lakers, he was like the 5th or 6th option. If they couldn't sign anybody at all, they were just going to give Isaiah Thomas a one-year deal. But he is going to the Denver Nuggets. I wish him the best of luck. I think he can succeed there. If he has a good year, hopefully Isaiah Thomas bounces back in the summer of 2019. But that is everything that we have for today's episode. As always, I definitely hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, please go ahead, leave this video a like. It definitely helps me out a lot. And let me know in the comment section below how you guys feel about some of these topics. How do you feel about Isaiah Thomas reaching out to Danny Ainge? Do you think it was a weak move? Do you think he should have went back to Boston? Do you think Tobias Harris is going to be a great fit for the Clippers if he signs a long-term deal? Do you think he's worth the max money when that happens? And let me know what you guys think about Carmelo Anthony and Kawhi Leonard. Is Leonard going to stay with the Toronto Raptors? Is Carmelo Anthony going to be a great fit in Houston? Let me know how you guys feel about those topics in the comment section below. It's your boy DLloyd. I'm see y'all next time. Peace.